Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, let's go over Tesla and let's talk about what has happened because a pretty wild day actually for the most part. So we'll go over all of that and figure out what is happening and what we can expect finishing off the week and of course moving into next week, which should be, I believe, the final week of June pretty much. Right, so let's jump into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Again, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. This is all just for fun. And then my membership section for $2.99 a month is live. Link is down below for my intraday thoughts on Tesla stock as it moves throughout the day. Now, moving into a Tesla actually closing in the green, 2% in the green, following the market, pretty much in line with the market. But the impressive thing is the fact that it actually started off substantially, well, not substantially, but pretty red. It was like about 4% or maybe even 4.5% in the red from here. You can see, I mean, we can pretty much calculate it, right? It was from here all the way down to here. Yeah, almost 4.5% in the red, pretty much pre-markets. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because it was there's news about Elon potentially like fighting Zuckerberg, like literally IRL. I don't know, maybe because of that. Who knows for sure exactly? Maybe it's because Morgan Stanley's, I believe it's Morgan Stanley, they downgraded Tesla, but it could be that. No one knows for sure, 100%. But nonetheless, it did open up pretty red. And then not only did it recapture and go green, but it also ended 2% in the green. So pretty much almost a 7% move on the day, technically from the bottom to low. If you bought the bottom and sold the top, 7%, which is unbelievable for a single day of movement. Now, what does this mean, right? Is Tesla potentially still back to being bullish, right? This is why yesterday I talked about, even though Tesla looks bearish and we did get a pretty decent drop, you always want to be extra cautious with Tesla, right? This is, like I said yesterday, a stock that sometimes really can just do whatever the hell it wants and can make things, difficult, let's just say that, and unpredictable. So, but let's talk about it and let's figure out what we can expect moving forward. So first and foremost on the daily, the volume, not too bad, right? Pretty respectable volume, definitely not too low, right? Which is a good sign, but we are getting rejected a little bit here, pretty much at the same level. Almost, you can see that we got rejected right over here before this drop happened to go down, much lower, right? So that's number one. I did enter, by the way, a bullish, all disclaimer aside, of course, I did enter a small bullish position somewhere around the 250, I think it was around 256, I believe. I did a cash secured put, nothing completely major, right? A pretty light for my portfolio, but I did obviously take advantage of this move because I'm not going to just sit here and watch that. So I did take advantage of the move. I do wish one a little bit heavier, but sometimes it is like that. But again, we are getting rejected at the same level we got rejected right here before this massive move down. Now, there's, of course, in my opinion, two things that can happen here. Number one, we don't move above 265, essentially. That's the level I'll be watching for tomorrow. 265 is extremely important, which we're above right now after hours, but very crucial level to watch for tomorrow, around that 265-ish level, right? If Tesla can go above it and hold above it, then I personally believe Tesla is actually short-term bullish. Like, again, very short-term, but nonetheless, very short-term bullish. If it can't and it holds and it gets, consistently rejected at this rough level right here that we pretty much close that, then I think that at the very least, we'll consolidate, if not potentially go obviously even lower. Now, again, like I said, my ultimate price target is, first I'm looking for the 230s, potentially as low as, my goodness, 230s, potentially as low as, maybe 220s-ish, right? Which I do think it'll get there. I just don't think it'll happen overnight. I do think it will take time. I do think it'll take a few weeks probably, right? Probably somewhere in July, maybe even, right? Maybe like, a sell-off, into earnings wouldn't surprise me at all. Right, but something like that is what I expect. But again, if Tesla does break above 265 and it breaks above this resistance here, that's when I personally believe that it can potentially come back up at the very least to not only, on the daily, maybe even on like, let's say the 2 hour, to truly retest this breakdown, like an actual retest, right? Because usually when you get these little small retests, that's essentially what gave us this move down. But if the bears or if, people wanted to buy the dip or whatever the case may be, wanted to go even lower, like at the least, into the 230s, what you want to see is like a true retest of this breakdown. So you break down, come back up, truly retest it, and then potentially move even lower, right? So that's kind of what the bears or people wanted to go lower for whatever reason really want to see. However, with that being said, that's option one. Option two potentially is if Tesla does come back up somewhere around here, actually retest or test that 280 level properly this time, or gets very close to a summer like this, potentially setting up a little bit of a double top like this, and then we move down overall as well, right? Now, I want to make it very clear, like, I do think eventually Tesla will, of course, break above this 280 level, break above this red line. I just don't think it'll happen just yet, right? It might. Obviously, you never know with Tesla. You always want to, you really never know with the stock. But there's a few things. So first and foremost, right, just completely rallying this aggressively, this fast, and still having momentum to break above such a massive resistance, honestly would be a miracle. Like, I really do believe that would be essentially a miracle. Is it possible? Sure, of course it is, especially with Tesla. But my goodness, that would be truly like just, that would be something else. I'm just going to admit that would be like, that would be unbelievable, right? That's number one. Number two, again, it'll set up that double top. But the thing I'll be paying attention to the most here is the fact that you can see on the 1 hour, for instance, right, the RSI, we are setting up a bearish divergences because we're really not going much lower overall, right? We're still very much trading at the top of this like overall rally still, right? We're not far from it really, right? I mean, even percentage wise, we're not really that far from it, right? It's what, 4 to 5%, right? It's not much at all, right? But the RSI is just consistently going lower, lower and lower, right? Now, the thing that I'll be paying attention to more importantly is if we do come back up to, let's say, retest this breakdown, right? So again, it'll pretty much bring us up roughly to the same level that we were over here, right? 275 to 280, right? If we do come back up to retest this level, right? This will not only, of course, be a retest, but the RSI will really start setting up a much more obvious bearish divergence, something like this, right? Where, it's constantly setting, lower highs and lower lows, while the stock is really not setting anything lower much at all, right? If anything, it's going sideways, if not potentially even slightly higher. You know what I mean? I mean, you can argue this right here was a higher low. Let me go back to this, right? So you can argue if we zoom in that we technically set a higher low right here, right? The fact that Tesla bounced off this level is really, really crucial. So it is technically a higher low. And technically, if we go up here and say we actually retest 280, which will be a retest of this channel, maybe like, let's say early next week, for instance, maybe even tomorrow, but probably early next week, right? Let's say that does happen. Well, that potentially will set even a higher high, which technically is bullish, but the RSI will be setting lower lows, lower highs. So that to me will be like textbook bearish divergence RSI. So, that's just the way I'm looking at it right now. Again, I want to make it clear. I do think Tesla will break above these levels, this 280 level, this red line. I do think that is going to happen at some point, maybe later this year for sure, right? I definitely think it will happen. But again, major resistance, potential double top, bearish divergences setting up on the RSI. The daily RSI you can see is it's still overbought, very overbought, but also showing weakness. It just completely, like we're pretty much at the same level that we were just 2 days ago. Very, very close to it, but the RSI is just obviously meaningfully lower. You know what I mean? Even we're actually higher than yesterday's level, right? We're higher than yesterday's level. So I don't know. It's just something I'll be careful about. Or you can even look at it from back here when we closed at 257 roughly. The RSI was pretty much at the peak level, if you will, almost right over here, right? We're actually higher than that now, but the RSI is meaningfully lower than that. So definitely some bearish divergences setting up there that I would be very, very careful about. That I wouldn't, again, take it with a grain of salt and take it for what it's worth. Personally, again, I still think that we'll come down overall to this white line, which again, we always come back to at some point or another. And another thing this move reminds me of, I talked about this in my membership Discord, is going to be the move that happened all the way back here. Let me remove this for now. Actually, we'll keep it, right? So pretty much back when we had this massive rally, similar concept over here, right? Just a massive rally, oops. And back here, same thing, right? Just a massive rally, right? Obviously some red in between, but pretty much all just straight up, right? Similar to what we're experiencing right here. Then once we found that top, which was this level right here, roughly, we came down pretty much what we just had, right? Literally just this morning, essentially. And then we also had a massive green candle, essentially what we had this morning, right? And then we not only came back to roughly the same level, we actually went slightly higher, but we couldn't really close anything too meaningfully higher. And then you can see right here is where we started setting up that bit of bearish divergence right over here, right? So I expect something like this move to happen, then we consolidate it for a bit, and then we finally move down. And I think this move right here is what will take us to around that 230-ish, give or take, of course, level. And then from there, I think we'll actually bounce overall, right? But that's kind of the move I am personally expecting, and it looks very similar to this situation that we saw back here in February. So that's roughly what I am kind of putting it side by side, if you will, with and comparing it to right now, because it looks pretty damn similar to me, and it's playing out from essentially the same pattern. Nice little rally, bull flag, and then we're rallying off of that, and this rally essentially supposed to mimic roughly together. And I mean, so far it's mimicking pretty damn closely, you know what I mean? It's looking pretty similar of a rally. So another thing to, of course, pay attention to that's also very important. Now, people are probably also wondering, well, what happened with the bearish engulfing? Well, of course, we had that pretty massive drop this morning, right? We went all the way down to the 240s as well, right? So that's number one. But number two, the fact that Tesla did close above the gap fill is good. It's not a bad sign for the bulls, right? That's pretty good. If the bears really wanted to defend this gap fill, in my opinion, that would have been pretty bearish if it did, or if they did rather, they didn't. And Tesla closed back inside this kind of general area. But with that being said, if you do some research, you can see that there are instances where even you have bearish engulfing patterns. You can see like this was the bearish, this massive red candle right here. And then the next day we had a green candle similar to what we have right here that actually entered the territory of the bearish engulfing candle, the red massive candle, but then it still followed through back down after that anyways, with of course also an overbought RSI. So just saying that technically this is still perfectly fine to continue this pattern down. But to me right now, the most important level will be roughly, which we're already crossing after hours, roughly that 265-ish level. Very, very crucial level to me to see what happens about tomorrow. But again, if we break it, I think a retest of this overall breakdown, potentially setting a double top around the 275, 280-ish level. And then, of course, again, with the red line being a massive resistance, which, again, I do think will break eventually. But my goodness, if we somehow just continue breaking it, something like that, after this rally without much of a break, that would be truly something special. Never know, of course, which is why I did enter a bit of a bullish position just in case. But again, I am still a lot more cash than I am actually, in the market as of right now. So that is what it is. So I have no patience. I have no issues waiting. I have no issues being patient, but yeah, that's kind of what I am seeing. So let me know what you guys think down below. The VIX is just getting completely and utterly destroyed. But if you look at the weekly, for instance, or even the monthly, it doesn't really go to these levels that often. And when it does, we're entering some pretty massive areas from where the VIX usually finds some pretty sizable bounces. So just keep that in mind as well. Take it for what it's worth. But all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.